The Eurotunnel Group was formed, following an agreement between the French and British governments earlier in the year to finance and construct a tunnel between the UK and France. A consortium of British and French construction firms was contracted under the rather awkwardly named umbrella firm of Trans-Manche Link, with construction projected to begin in 1988. Ireland bade farewell to Monsignor James Horan, who died at the age of 75 on a pilgrimage to Lourdes. Horan had been instrumental in the development of the small shrine in his parish of Knock, County Mayo, into a pilgrimage site. Pope John Paul II had visited the site in 1979 to mark the centenary of the visions that had led to the construction of the shrine in the first place. Horan also successfully campaigned to build an airport at Knock, despite criticisms that the boggy, misty terrain was unsuitable. The airport had opened in October 1985, and Ireland West Airport, as it is now known, is now the fourth busiest in the country. The F1 transporters headed west to the Styrian foothills of Austria for the fastest circuit on the calendar. It was the seventh race in 10 weeks across 2 continents, and teams, drivers, equipment and journalists alike were all feeling the strain. Pirelli had announced that they too would be pulling out of F1 at the end of the season, leaving Goodyear as the sole tyre supplier, while yet more rumours suggested that McLaren might persuade Renault to recant their withdrawal and supply them instead. Alessandro Nannini was also being talked about for bigger things, with Benetton being a hot favourite, but which driver would go to make way was not specified. The Österreichring's combination of long straights, fast corners and narrow confines have thrown up some interesting results in the past. Vittorio Brambilla had won his only Grand Prix here in 1975 in a rain-shortened race in the Works March, then crashed while celebrating on his slowing down lap. John Watson took his maiden win, and the only one for the Penske team the following year, and the year after that, Alan Jones took the only win for the Shadow team and his first. More recently, the track had seen the epic battle in 1982 between world champion that year Keke Rosberg and the late Elio De Angelis that gave the latter his maiden win. This year, although the Williams Hondas were still clearly the class of the field, many of the pundits thought the Benetton team might do well, their car and engine package suiting the circuit, and if so, Gerhard Berger could end up being a real local hero. However, the crowds at the track were disappointing over the weekend, with many Austrian F1 fans having decided to try out the Hungarian race last weekend instead. Those who did come saw a cracking battle for pole, with the McLarens on top of the heap on Friday, followed by the Williamses and Berger, but on Saturday, almost everyone improved their times, and Berger held pole for much of the session until his teammate Fabi snuck in to break Austrian hearts and snag his second career pole. So it was a front-row lockout for the Benetton team, the first in their history, with Rosberg third and Patrese an excellent fourth in the troubled Brabham, despite having a big off on Friday, demolishing his race car and having to qualify and race the spare. The championship contenders were together behind these 4, with Prost, Mansell, Piquet and Senna taking up places 5 through 8, with Alboreto 9th and Warwick making a good session for Brabham in 10th. Behind them were the Ligiers, Alio outqualifying his illustrious teammate Arnoux by 4/10, with Johansson back in 14th and suffering from back pain after going off and hitting an advertising hoarding. Dumfries was 15th, and the usual suspects at the back, with Berg once again 12 seconds off the pace and 2 seconds off his own teammate. Warwick had a gearbox failure on Sunday morning, but it was repaired in time for the race, only for Patrese to have an identical problem on the dummy grid. With no time to repair it, and Ricciardo already in the spare, the team took the decision to withdraw Warwick and give the car to Patrese to race, given he'd qualified 4th. Needless to say, Del Boy was not happy at all about this, and later recalled that Bernie Eccleston had to physically drag him from the cockpit, which, given their respective builds, ages and fitness levels, must have been something to behold. At any rate, the other 25 cars formed up for the start, and as the green lights went on, away they went. Berger was quickest off the mark and surged ahead of Fabi, while Patrese stuttered and dropped back, and Prost got a flyer to slot in 3rd ahead of Mansell and Rosberg, with Piquet also getting ahead of the Finn in the first corner complex. By the end of lap 1, Berger and Fabi already had a big lead over Prost, with Mansell, Piquet, Rosberg, Senna and Arnoux close behind. Fabi wasn't inclined to hold station behind the hometown hero and was pushing Berger hard for the lead, while Patrese trailed in after just 2 laps to retire with an engine failure to make for a pretty miserable result for Brabham after such a promising practice. By lap 4, Fabi seemed to drop away from Berger and soon had the Mansell-Prost duo in his mirrors, and soon the leaders were lapping Johnny Dumfries, who'd already been in for some repairs. On lap 9, Dumfries' teammate Senna came in to swap tyres with his initial set not working for him, and on the same lap, Dumfries spluttered in for more repairs, only this time a spark plug got stuck in the cylinder head as the mechanics were changing it, and his race was over. And then, a few laps later, Senna pulled in to retire with a misfire to make Lotus another British team having a dreadful weekend. Alongside Tyrrell, both of whose drivers had already dropped out with engine or turbo problems in the previous couple of laps. Nannini's suspension went on the new M186 and pitched him into a spin, and a lap later De Cesaris retired with clutch problems, so it was starting to look like it would be a race of attrition in the hot weather, with 9 retirements in the first 15 laps, 10 if you include Warwick. By now Fabi had caught Berger again, and on lap 17 he passed his teammate for the lead, only to immediately slow down and tour off with a broken engine. Mansell and Prost came past, still battling for what was now second, as Nigel made a move but was blocked by Prost, and the pair continued running nose to tail. Piquet made an early tyre stop on lap 19 and rejoined 6th, by which time Berger had a lead of some 12 seconds over Prost and Mansell and was looking pretty comfortable. On lap 22, Prost peeled in for his own stop, losing a few seconds as the team cleared some rubbish from his radiators, as they did for Rosberg a lap or so later. Then at the end of lap 25, it was Berger coming from the lead for his own tyre stop. The stop was quick, but then the car didn't move. As Mansell came past into the lead, the Benetton mechanics swarmed all over Berger's car and took off the engine cover. He was still there when Mansell came around again to complete the half-distance lap, so it was Nigel, with Prost second some 28 seconds back, followed by Arnoux, Piquet, Rosberg and Alboreto. But Mansell had yet to stop and Prost was charging. Boutsen's race in the new A9 Arrows was run with a turbo failure, as Berger sat disconsolately in the cockpit waiting for his team to identify and fix the problem. Mansell was in for his own stop on lap 28, a sticking right rear wheel nut cost him a few seconds, not disastrously but enough to allow Prost past into the lead, setting the fastest lap into the process. Piquet was in next time round, but he would go no further, his Honda engine suffering from overheating, just as Berger finally took to the track once again, 4 laps adrift and in 14th and last place, but at the rate of retirement so far it was probably worth trying to finish anyway. He certainly seemed determined to prove a point, charging off and setting fastest lap. Prost was now looking his old self, cool and in control of the race, and his day got better yet as Nigel Mansell's CV joint went on lap 33 and he was out too, promoting Rosberg to second. The 2 McLarens were by now the only 2 cars on the leading lap, with Alboreto 3rd, Jones 4th, Johansson 5th and Tombe 6th. The Ferrari and Haas-Lola teams had both had pretty rough seasons so far and would be desperately hoping to go the distance. Things stayed pretty much the same as the race drew into its final stages, with fuel consumption top of everybody's minds. Just 5 laps from the end, Rosberg's race was run as his electrics short-circuited, and meanwhile Johansson had gotten ahead of Jones, who was struggling with a badly slipping clutch, so the Ferraris were now 2nd and 3rd. And that was where they ended. Alain Prost was not only the winner, having lapped the entire field, but the only one of the 4 championship contenders to finish, with Alboreto and Johansson taking a very welcome double podium finish for the prancing horse. Jones and Tombe got Haas-Lola on the scoresheet for the first time, and Christian Danner, driving the old Arrows A8, picked up the last point in 6th place, career first for him and the first for Arrows this year. Gerhard Berger put on a show for the fans, unlapping himself from Prost as he blazed around to set the fastest lap of the race, ultimately finishing 7th, just out of the points, with Rosberg classified 9th, and Arnoux and Ghinzani both still running at the end. So the Drivers' Championship was still very much anybody's, with just 8 points separating the top 4, with 4 races, Italy, Portugal, Mexico and Australia to go, and it was promising to be an epic finale to the season. Williams, meanwhile, were looking dominant in the Constructors' Championship, but their 30-point lead wasn't quite unassailable yet.